Welcome to Shelby Podcast, a production of Shelby Systems Media. And now here's your host, Don Alsop.
We are in the Shelby Podcast studios today with Dr. Danny Sinquefield, the senior pastor of one of the fastest growing churches in America today, Faith Baptist in Bartlett, Tennessee. Danny and I went to school together back in the 1970s. Danny, it's great to see you again. Could you kind of catch us up on your history a bit? If you could tell us about your time here in Memphis growing up, what you did while you were in Florida, and why you finally decided to return back to your hometown.
Well, thanks, Don. It is good to be on the show today. Thank you very much for the great honor. And it is good to be back in the great Memphis area. My wife and I both grew up here and enjoyed those school years that you mentioned. I always enjoyed keeping up with friends through the years. During college, we moved off to Central Florida in Orlando area, where we serve a great church there in that beautiful part of the country, and really have come back home to the Memphis area for the purpose of serving as pastor at Faith Baptist Church, and that was back in 1994, so we're in our 15th year here at Faith Baptist in the Bartlett area. Danny,
I'd like for you to tell us about the very beginnings of Faith Baptist Church, if you would. How many people did you start with? Where were you meeting? And do you have any good stories you can share from those days?
I do love to tell the stories of faith and the stories of our early history. When I came to Faith Baptist Church, we were meeting actually in a small rented facility. I was their first full-time pastor. We had one part-time secretary and a part-time youth minister. We had about 300 members when I first arrived, and we have seen an incredible amount of changes. I remember sitting in the office, in fact, coming from a large church in Orlando, and everything was always so quiet. There was not much activity around, little small church, and I used to beg for the phone to ring. And now these days, with a little bit of different dynamic with multiple secretaries and phone lines all over the place, they're reminding me that God answered that prayer. So the Lord has given us a very busy, dynamic congregation. It's grown from those 300 members now to over 3,000 members, and it's been a delight to see God's hand during those days.
To what do you credit the incredible growth that Faith Baptist Church has experienced over those early years, and what advice would you give to a pastor who's starting to see growing numbers in his congregation?
That's a great question, Don. One of the things that is pretty obvious to most people living in this part of our city and our area is that the city of Bartlett itself has been very aggressively growing. The church located out on Germantown Road, 1.5 miles from the Wolf Chase Mall, and honestly, when we first bought that property, it was a little different than it is now. We wondered if anybody would ever drive that far to come way out to Germantown Road to go to church. So there's been the growth naturally. The homes have come, the schools have been built, but also I think that something very attractive has happened at Faith Baptist. We developed very early on a desire to be a church that realized that we probably would never be the biggest church in town, but we thought we could find a way to be kingdom big. And so we really tried to find ways to give ourselves away. Some things that our church is committed to is starting new churches. We've had the great privilege of starting churches back inside the city of Memphis. We've started a church in Lakeland. We've got a new church plant happening in Arlington, Tennessee. Also, we believe in strengthening other churches. We've literally given our people away to go serve at other churches for a season. Some of them who came back home, some of them never returned home. And what we found is that kind of spirit has been very attractive. People hear about that. It develops a very contagious atmosphere. People who want to be a part of a church that's not trying to be inward focused, but is very intentionally trying to be a kingdom focused church.
Danny, your mission statement reads, "The mission of Faith Baptist Church is to glorify God through passionate worship, personal evangelism, purposeful discipleship, practical ministry, and participation in missions." Your website says that you're a missions-driven church. In what way does Faith Baptist reach out to the community and to the world through missions?
Well, that is right, Don, and I appreciate you sharing that mission statement because that really is the heartbeat of who we are as a congregation. We intentionally try to mobilize our people to step outside of their comfort zone, to do more than just give money to missions or to pray for missions, even though both of those are very vital and very important. But we also get folks to participate in missions locally through the opportunities that surround our community. We have Sunday school classes, for instance, that adopt local schools, and they do prison ministry and all kinds of activities in the community, but then also regionally and nationally. And then we take about 17 to 20 international mission trips a year with different objectives. Some are construction teams, some are medical teams, some are sports evangelism teams, getting people involved to a new level out of their comfort zone. Last year, for instance, our church saw more than 2,000 members participating in a short-term mission project, either locally, nationally, or internationally.
So what is going on at Faith Baptist Church today? I know that recently you completed a new worship center. Tell us about that project and what benefits it has produced and what you're you're looking forward to accomplishing in the future?
Less than a year ago, we did open up the new worship center. It seats about 2,000 people, and it gave us a great opportunity to continue to reach our community. We were meeting in our multi-purpose building, and we were having 3 morning services back to back to back, which became a little wearying for the preacher who's not as young as he used to be. So we were able to go back from 3 services to 2 morning worship services, and now we actually have room to grow. So we're grateful for that. That facility is also multi-purpose, and it's used for a lot of community events, activities. We're looking forward to hosting high school graduations, baccalaureate services, and those kinds of things. One of the other things that we have that we like to share is another campus that we actually own. It's called Buckhead Creek, and the Lord has given us a great opportunity through the Ministry of Outdoor Recreation to reach our community. For community-wide events, it's not uncommon for us to have between 2,000 and 3,000 people on that property. Many ball teams, soccer, baseball, softball teams through the year. Very exciting to have those kinds of resources, that kind of a tool to help influence the community.
Danny, I know that you recently came back from a trip outside the country. Can you tell us where you went and what kind of things did you do while you were there?
It was an incredible opportunity to visit the beautiful country of Israel. We were invited there by some Arab-speaking Christians, Baptists, who have a wonderful Christian school, the Nazareth Baptist School and Seminary. And there are about 20 Baptist churches, I learned, in the nation of Israel, and had the privilege of speaking to those pastors and preaching on Sunday morning, Wednesday night, and also speaking in chapel in the school, trying to build a friendship, partnership relationship with those Arab-speaking Christian brothers who are living in a very complex place. They are literally surrounded by people that are not all that friendly, but the nation of Israel is not often thought of as a mission trip opportunity, but I think the strategic nature of that part of the world lends itself to having a great traction to do mission work there.
Danny, congratulations. I heard you were just elected president of the Tennessee Baptist Convention. What do you consider to be the biggest challenges for Tennessee Baptists these days, and what do you hope to accomplish during your presidency?
Yeah, well, thank you, Don. It is a great honor to be elected as the Tennessee Baptist Convention president, representing around 3,000 churches across our state. We're a convention of, believe it or not, smaller churches. The majority of our churches, in fact, over 2,000 of them, are averaging 80 in attendance or less on a Sunday. One of the things that I hope to accomplish is to travel from Memphis to Mountain City and all points in between to encourage pastors and especially to engage younger pastors, the 20 and 30-year-old pastors, some of whom have become maybe disassociated with or disenfranchised, sometimes marginalized. We want to recapture the energy of those young pastors and encourage them to continue to be a part of the process of cooperation, partnership for missions and evangelism across our state.
Well, when you get back to faith, Danny, make sure that you say thanks to Sylvia Manley. She's one of Shelby's most dependable beta testers, so if you could, tell her a big thank you from Shelby Systems.
I sure will, Don. We're grateful for Sylvia's work with us now over 10 years, and I know that she has not only been a big help to you, but also Shelby Systems has been a great help to Faith Baptist Church through the years. We have been assisted in so many ways, not only to save time and energy and manpower, but also to keep up with the growing congregation. One of the things we're most grateful for is the ability that your company gives to us and the technology that we are provided and the resources that are provided to help us maintain a small church environment, a small church atmosphere as the congregation continues to grow. So thank you for your help, and it's a great partnership that we have between Faith Baptist and Shelby Systems.
Dr. Danny Sinquefield is one of this nation's finest young pastors with a gift for teaching the Word of God and a passion for soul winning. If you would like to learn more about the ministry of Faith Baptist Church, just click the link on our podcast webpage. Don't miss our next program where we will be talking with events manager Karen Bishop in part 2 of our ISC interview. And keep in mind that you have until March 31st to register for ISC and receive a price advantage. Before we go, here is our inspirational quote for the day. It comes from Matthew 28, verses 19 and 20. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
You've been listening to Shelby Podcast with your host, Don Alsop. Shelby Podcast is a copyrighted production of Shelby Systems Media and can be heard online at shelbyinc.com/podcast, or you can download the program, copy it to your iPod or MP3 player, and listen at your convenience. Shelby Podcast is also available on iTunes. Make sure you click the RSS link so that you get each new show automatically. Thanks for listening, and tune in next time for another Shelby Podcast.